Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
The wife decided to allow one of the celebrities unacceptable, but the husband Okazasian not miss. Today's story has a similar plot. Enjoy it! As I walked down the path to our condo following my wife, I shook my head. As I approached the door, she slammed it right in my face. I sighed and turned to go back to the car. As soon as I reached the end of the path, I heard her scream again. "Where the hell are you going?" she shouted. "We haven't finished talking yet, Connie." "You slammed the door in my face," I said calmly. "I just thought I'd go back to the studio and work on the photos I took this afternoon. That way, you can calm down and I can get some work done." "I don't need to calm down," she hissed. "I'm quite normal." "You have problems. You let that woman rub herself on you. Do you think I didn't notice? She rubbed her breasts on you and you just sat there and smiled. I wonder what she would do if I were there. There will be no cheating in this marriage. If you cheat, you will leave. No excuses, no mercy. Goodbye, Connie." She just hugged me. "There's no reason for you to be so mad. Everyone I work with sees my wedding ring. Everyone knows that I'm married and very happy. Plus, Serena saw you around. If only there was something between us, I doubt she would come and hug me right in front of you." "Lustful women remain lustful," she hissed. "And you must make it clear to your people that you are married. You need to let them know that your wife takes her vows very seriously." "I hear and read about this all the time," I replied. "People in the media and entertainment industry just think they're on a different level from the rest of the damn world." I pushed past her and into the house so our neighbors wouldn't listen to the rest of her tirade. "And you need to know this is fake as day," she continued. "She probably has breast implants, but implants, a nose job, collagen in her lips, reshaped cheekbones, whitened teeth, bleached hair, and leg extensions. There's nothing real about her." "Hell, I'd look like that too if they did all that stuff on me," I said, shaking my head. "Leg lengthening," she said. "I thought it was an exercise." "Don't be stupid, Rob," she said. "You know how they do it. She's almost 6 feet tall and bony. She has almost no hips, but she has a bubble butt. It's not natural." "Connie, she played volleyball and basketball in college," I said. "That's why she's tall and skinny. It's all exercise." Connie looked at me as if I were under a microscope. "I hope this is a good time to stop and introduce the participants in our little drama. My name's Rob, short for Robin Delgado. I'm a photographer. I started as a child with a cheap Kodak camera that my parents bought for me as a Christmas present. I won many photography competitions as a teenager and knew that when it came time to think about college, photography would be my major. Throughout school, I didn't join any clubs or teams, but I was at every major school event. I needed to be there to take pictures. It was the same at the parties I went to. I've never been there with a girlfriend or friends, but I've always been there with a camera. There was one girl, Melissa Mulligan, who thought I was cute. She often asked me why I didn't participate in anything. She found it strange that instead of joining in and experiencing life, I preferred to watch it from the sidelines. I've thought about this often and only recently found the answer to her question. It's not that I didn't participate in life. Each of us has a part to play in the great drama that is life. My role in this drama is to photograph events so that people who could not attend can see great, beautiful, or tragic events with their own eyes. In my particular case, I noticed that life is messy and ugly even at the best of times, and even when you have those truly beautiful or sublime moments, they look better to me when they're focused through my camera lens. My wife Connie and I have only been married for 2 years. I am the owner of my own agency. I have several photographers on staff, and we shoot everything from fashion to magazine work. Often, models or artists who are concerned about their image will tell us what parties or events they are going to. They or their managers hire us to photograph them at these events because we take hundreds of pictures and let them control what photos we publish in magazines or newspapers. This way, only photos that represent them well are visible. On the other hand, when stars are on the decline, magazines often hire us instead of their staff photographers to get pictures of the stars that show them in an unfavorable light, like photos of Lindsay Blowhard when she's drunk or high, which helps a magazine or newspaper sell a certain story. Sometimes celebrities and magazines bid for my work. The magazine wants bad photos. I get them, and the star or their management finds out and pays me more than the magazine offered to make sure the photos never see the light of day. This morning's shoot was for a magazine ad. One of the models, Serena Vasova, a nearly 6-foot Russian beauty as mentioned, hugged me after the shoot ended. I've worked with Serena a couple of times now, and she's a really nice girl. Her strong Russian accent makes her seem exotic. Her pale gray eyes and long legs don't hurt either. Despite everything, Serena is rumored to be a 23-year-old virgin. She's also on her way to becoming a bona fide supermodel. She does everything right and ends up on a lot of covers. It also doesn't hurt that she often asks me for advice on filming. I seriously wouldn't mind using her influence to get bigger and better assignments, but that won't happen if Connie makes an innie every time we work together. Just stay away from that, Connie says. Promise me this. She calmed down, so I tried to reason with her. Okay, Connie, I said, if you don't care about us losing the cruise I wanted to give us for Christmas, it'll be your way. What do you mean? She looked at me with curiosity. Serena asks me often, I began. She's on her way to the top as a model. She makes an incredible amount of money and has a big say in when, where, and how everything is done on her shoots. If she asks me personally, I get more money, which means I can buy more and better things for you. I mean, we're married. Long after Serena's career as Flavor of the Month is over, we'll still be together. But if I'm on set with her, even though you saw me today, there are always a lot of other people bothering you. I'll just stop working with her. There were a lot of people there, she said in a hesitant voice. There were 3 hairdressers, 2 makeup artists and their assistants, her agent was there, her representative, her personal assistant, all my assistants, the client's representative, the fashion designer and his assistants, and 4 other models, all of whom also had their employees, I said. I think there must have been about 50 people there, and there always is. Okay, she said reluctantly, but I don't want you to ever be alone with that. I'm still not happy about it because you're too obsessed with your cameras and your career to notice the little things. But, I'm a woman, and I know how women think, and this girl wants you. I promise, I said, I will never allow myself to be in a situation where Serena and I are alone. Now, why don't you make us a nice brunch while I sit on the computer and edit the photos so I can sell them and make us some money? I went to my office and sat down at the computer. The equipment I had at home was the same editorial software I used in the office, allowing me to work from home when I just didn't want to go to work. While I was working on photos from the morning shoot, a call came in on my iPhone. Rob, where are you? Asked the caller. I already told you that we need test shots as soon as possible. It was Frederick Bonan, Serena's manager. I couldn't stand this guy, he was narcissistic like them all. His French accent, which was also fake, irritated me beyond belief. I should never have let you take those photos. You're not famous enough, he said. He didn't like being called that, he preferred his name to be pronounced Frederick. This only proved what an idiot he was, because by pronouncing it that way, his name was German, and there was not much love between the French and the Germans. However, it was all academic because it was fake. But I'm tired of his crap, so I decided to let him know about Fred. Derek will wear out, he said sharply. I am French, Fred. The internet is a wonderful place, I said. If you know what to do, you can find out almost anything. Sometimes, you can even find out why. Unfortunately, I couldn't find out why. Why what? He asked slowly. Why would a guy born Fred Thompson in Corpus Christi, Texas, want to pretend to be a French modeling agent? You have a lot of pictures from your high school days. You were in the drama club, weren't you? I don't think your dad would like that. You're not cut out for football. They take sports very seriously in Texas, don't they? There was silence on the phone. I found a video of you in the musical Oklahoma. You were a damn good singer, Freddie. Also, why did you become Frederick, which by the way, I didn't find either. I also couldn't find any record of you actually going to college for a BA in art and fashion, which is hanging on your office wall. Even when I looked up the college where your degree came from, you were actually listed there as a student, but you dropped out for financial reasons. My guess is that Dad didn't want to pay for your fashion education, but I could be wrong. What's the point? He asked slowly. I think you're going to tell everyone this no, I said. I'm a firm believer in live and let live for Derek with everything I've heard. Degree or not, accent or not, you're very good at what you do. Me too, at least I try to be. All I want from you is to let me do my job. Believe it or not, I'm working on test shots even as we speak. I told you that you would have test shots to show your client by the first morning, didn't I? Yes, he said, a little bit of Texas slipping through when he said that. Actually, you'll have test shots by this evening, I said. In fact, I'll send you the first 5 pictures now. I clicked on some files on the computer and sent them to his office. We were both silent for a few minutes, and then he said, "Oh my God." "Hey, Frederick, that didn't sound French," I said. "These photos are great," he said. "I don't know how, but wait." While I was waiting, he was doing something at his desk. It's not just the lighting in the photos, but Serena has never looked better before. Whatever you're doing, it works. I would really appreciate it if you could get me the rest of the pictures on time. I won't bother you anymore. And Rob, he said. What you said earlier about keeping my secret, thank you. A little later, after I put the phone down, there was a knock on my office door. I opened it, and Connie walked in with her best friend, Jessica. "Where's lunch?" I asked. "Oh, that," Connie said. "I was too busy talking to Jess." "Why didn't you tell me about the party tonight at the Dalton Hotel?" "Because I'm not going there," I said. "I have 2 parties scheduled for tonight. I decided to shoot the one in Badak. There will be a couple of really important politicians at that party. History could be made there tonight." "And you mean one of those moneybags might actually tell the truth?" she interrupted sharply. "It would be historic, but unlikely. They're all lying, Rob. You should switch and shoot another party. Jason Hamster will be there, you know how much I adore him. I'd really like to get his pictures. Remember what I told you when we got married?" I asked. "Sorry, honey, but I already assigned Ed to shoot that party. My gear is already at another hotel. Changing assignments this close to the event would be chaos." Her face fell. "Next time I get the chance, I will not only take photos for you, I will take you with me and introduce you," I promised her. She returned and spent the rest of the day chatting with Jessica. "Connie, God, you're so lucky," Jessica said admiringly. "Your husband is so nicely. We just watched as Rob loaded a couple of camera bags into the trunk of his Mustang and headed off to a boring party at a boring hotel. And his work is so cool," she continued. "Just think, he did a fashion shoot with Serena Vasova this morning and a party with important politicians tonight." "It's not that great," I said. "Connie's been pestering me all morning. Every chance she gets, she wraps herself around me like a cheap suit. She even dared to look at me with her big gray eyes like some crazy cat marking its territory." "But Rob loves you," stupid Jessica said. "He would never cheat on you." "Yes, I know that," I muttered, but she pissed me off. Also, if he really loved me, he would have arranged for me to see Jason Hamster. Now that man is the handsome thing alive. "I don't know," Jessica said. "He seems a little fruity to me. He looks like the kind of guy who would dump you at the first sign of trouble. I can picture you two arguing over each other's makeup use. What I can't imagine is you two growing old together. Or he'd hug you and make you feel safe. And let's face it, Rob is dad material. I just don't see Jason Hamster in that role." "Well, you're right on all counts," I said. "Besides, Jason doesn't like me in a serious way. That's just a fantasy. But you know Jason Hamster is my backup card, right?" "What do you mean, your backup card?" she asked. "When Rob and I first started dating, we exchanged fantasies about people. He told me who his dream woman was, and I told him who my dream man was. We laughed about it. I told him that if he ever met Eva Mendes, he could have a fling with her in peace. And if I ever meet Jason Hamster, he shouldn't be offended." Jessica and I laughed for a while, and then she suddenly jumped up. "Let's go," she said. We returned to Rob's office. She opened a drawer and looked at the desk in front of the computer. She held up a photography pass. "Yes, I know," I said. Rob goes to all the cool places. I'll ask him if you can keep that pass as a souvenir if you want. Sometimes they need to be returned, even if they haven't been used. You don't understand, do you? She asked. There's no photo or name on this pass. Anyone who works as a photographer for RDI Media can use this pass. You could go to a party and at least see Jason Hamster in person. Who knows, you might even get to meet him. When she smiled at me, I felt like I had been struck by lightning. This will definitely work, I thought to myself. I knew all of Rob's photographers and most of his staff, so once I got to the party, if there were any questions, I could just hang around with them for a while. Maybe I'd even linger until Jason showed up, if he showed at all. Rob was working at another party anyway, so he'd never know I did this. He usually got back quite late from these events because he ensured he got every shot possible and organized all his equipment. I'll do it, I said. Jessica's face lit up. Be sure to tell me what happens, she said. I better go home and cook dinner for my unglamorous plumber husband. Have fun rubbing shoulders with the rich and famous. I called my hairdresser and told him I had an emergency. When I explained why, he agreed to take care of my hair and makeup urgently in exchange for me spreading the word about his services. I grabbed my newest, fanciest shoes and a new little black dress that I had never worn before and headed towards his salon. 2 hours later, I presented my invitation card at the hotel and was escorted into the main hall where the party was taking place. As soon as I showed my photographer's pass, the security personnel and staff simply stopped paying attention to me. Unlike other guests who were directed where they could and couldn't go, I was essentially ignored. At this type of event, there were 3 groups of people. 1. Unknown guests who were either wealthy, had won a competition, or worked for sponsoring companies. They were background fillers with restrictions on their movements. 2. Really famous people who received VIP treatment and had no restrictions. 3. Employees and maintenance staff, where I was grouped, were there solely for work purposes and had free access. I walked up and greeted Rob's lead photographer at the party, Ed, whom I'd known since I started dating Rob. He was an older man and a skilled photographer, but lacked Rob's artistic flair. I spent about an hour with Ed and his team until the venue began to fill up. During the second hour, while mingling with guests, I met several people. It was easy to spot celebrities as they were immediately swarmed by photographers all night. I saw some TV personalities, but they didn't interest me. I came with one purpose, to see Jason Hamer. Getting an autograph or talking to him would be more than I hoped for. However, my excitement dwindled when I noticed a large crowd gathered around someone. Upon closer inspection, I saw Serena Vasova's gaze. Somehow, I should have expected she'd be here. Surrounded by reporters and even a few photographers, I found it strange that Ed wasn't among them. Given Serena's rising status, he should have been there. Instead, I noticed one of his assistants, which made me think Ed agreed with my sentiment that this wasn't worth his time. After some time, the crowd dispersed as other stars entered the hall, leaving Serena with a smaller group still vying for her attention. I kept my eyes on the door, waiting for Jason to appear, completely forgetting about Serena. Then, I heard her voice behind me. "Are they lying to me?" she asked with her strong Russian accent. I turned around to face her and had to admit she was stunning. Whoever her surgeon was did an excellent job. Even up close, I couldn't detect any signs of surgery or scars. Her appearance seemed completely natural, from her height to her breasts. "I'm sure they're all lying to you," I snorted, not understanding what she was talking about. "So Rob really won't be at this party?" she asked. "Really, Rob won't be at this party," I said, roughly imitating her accent. "Then why are you here?" she asked. Before she could finish her impudent question, a noise came from the door. I turned around, and my jaw dropped as Jason Hamer walked in the flesh. Unlike the other men in the room, Jason was not wearing a suit. He had on a long hockey jersey with his own name on the back. Everyone knew Jason was Canadian, and all Canadians love hockey, except those who don't. His hockey jersey was decorated with rhinestones, making it sparkle and glitter. Jason also sported his signature low-waist pants, the kind worn by teenagers downtown. The hem of his pants hung near his knees, causing him to walk like a penguin in need of the restroom. He moved with his toes splayed and wobbled from side to side, his arms and hands gesturing wildly, striking poses as if he were Madonna or at least a runway model. My heart pounded in my chest just seeing him. He pursed his lips, blowing kisses everywhere and smiling. "Yo, you dig? You know what I'm saying, guys," he said as he strolled. Unfortunately, no one understood what he was saying because he wasn't really saying anything. It was amusing how a white guy from Canada, too small and weak to play hockey, spoke like a black teenager from the inner city. But perhaps he was just that talented. "Oh, please," Serena snorted. "Don't tell me you're a Jason Hamer fan." I simply nodded, and she shook her head. "Do you know him?" I asked. She nodded. "He's tried to talk to me several times," she snorted. "His people contacted my people, thinking a romance between us could generate a lot of publicity and money." I stared at her, my eyes almost popping out of my head. "Have you two ever been together?" I asked. "Of course not," she snorted. "I'm like any other girl. When I fall in love, I want it to be with a man." She looked at me and smiled. "Wait," she said. "Let's wait a few minutes until the photographers move on to someone else, and I'll introduce you." Suddenly, she became my best friend. Maybe she's not so bad after all. At least she's introducing me to Jason. This is more than my husband could do. "Serena, has Rob ever photographed Jason Hamer?" I asked. "Many times," she said. "If we did a mock-up, a fictional romance, Rob would take the photos. He also did some shots for Jason's CD cover." "Wait, no, I misspoke. Rob edited the photos but didn't take them. You know what Rob thinks of Jason. He always laughs at him." "Rob has his own nickname for Jason?" I said. "I didn't know that." "They're probably friends, and Rob never told me," she said. "He has a lot of friends in the entertainment industry. He's a very good photographer, and his photos make us look good." "What's Rob's nickname for Jason?" I asked again. "It's a very affectionate nickname," she said. "I wish I had a cute nickname like that, but he just calls me Serena." "So, what does he call Jason?" I asked. "Oh," she said. "He calls him that little shit." My eyes widened in shock. I didn't know if it was because English wasn't her first language or if I was missing something, but it didn't sound like a pet name. "Come on," she said. "I'll introduce you." She grabbed my hand and pulled me through the crowd. Everyone seemed apart for us when they saw her. Jason was looking out at the crowd, making faces like a teenager in front of a mirror. As we approached him, he gestured with his hands and nodded his head as if he were dancing to music only he could hear. He looked up as Serena approached him and smiled. Serena didn't let go of my hand, and I felt electrified. As we neared Jason, a spotlight focused on us. I was so nervous that I almost forgot to breathe. "SHH, girl, I knew you couldn't resist me," he said. Up close, he was much shorter than I expected. He also seemed more fragile, like that kid who always got picked on in the suburbs among the nerds. If he ever showed up in the area where his videos were filmed, he would probably be beaten up by elementary school children. As the crowd around us dispersed, Serena dropped me in front of Jason. "Here's your biggest fan," she said. When she threw me in front of him, I felt like I was in one of those zoo scenes where the keeper opens the cage door and throws a big piece of meat to the hungry lions. I was neither a caretaker nor a lion. For some reason, I felt like a piece of meat. The second thing I noticed was that Serena had disappeared. "Okay, baby," he said, speaking into my chest. No, he wasn't rude, such was his height. "Let's talk about you," he said. "What do you like most about me?" I felt that electricity again and noticed Jason holding my hand. A couple of photographers took our pictures. "I love being connected with my fans," he said. Before I knew it, he led me out of the party hall and into one of the side rooms. His huge bodyguards followed us at a considerable distance. The room we found ourselves in was beautiful. I remembered Rob telling me about the interview rooms they used at some events, rooms used when a star promised an exclusive interview with a reporter or writer. Sometimes, a photographer was with them. Then I noticed that even the bodyguards weren't in the room with us. It was just Jason and me. He continued to talk to me even as he sat me down on the elegant sofa next to him. He sat very close to me, stroking my arm. Then, the next thing I knew, he was stroking my shoulder. He kept talking to me, telling me how hard his life was and how no one really understood him as an artist. He talked about how he wanted to overcome the limitations of his art and create music that would be considered the next generation of classical music. He said that he wanted to make sure that in 200 years, people would remember Bach, Beethoven, and Hamer. I didn't even notice how his hand moved from my shoulder to my chest. I knew it was wrong to let him touch me, but it was Jason Hamer, damn it. He could do whatever he wanted to me. I was sure Rob would understand. I didn't dream about my husband the way I dreamed about Jason, but if Rob touched my chest or even my leg, I was ready to have a night with him right away. Then I realized that I had to stop him, but I didn't. Ron would never know, anyway. I fainted. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. It's funny, but I don't even remember being intimacy aroused. I think I was actually in shock. I was so overwhelmed by meeting Jason that I didn't even have a chance to say no. The thought of saying no didn't even cross my mind. In fact, I didn't even realize we had an intim. It probably only lasted a minute. Maybe that should be the title of his new CD, Minute Man. Damn, girl, he said. That was cool. Then I realized that I had slept with Jason Hamer. I had a lot of thoughts running through my head. I was a fool. I didn't think about it while he was doing it because I was so stunned. I won't be able to describe it to Jessica or my kids when I have them. Damn, I thought, maybe I can get him to do it again. I looked down and almost laughed when I saw how little dignity he had. Then I remembered that I didn't really feel anything. I thought about it again and wondered if what he did could even compare to what Rob gives me 4 or 5 times a week. On a purely intimate scale, it was nothing. The only thing that made this even remotely interesting was the fact that I had just had an intim with Jason Hamer. "Can I have your number, baby?" he asked. I started to get irritated by the sound of his voice. His voice was too high and nasal. "What?" I asked. "Can I get your number so I can call you? You can be my little queen in Michigan." "What's your name, baby?" he asked. "Connie Delgado," I said. As soon as I said this, I began to realize that he was not at all what I had imagined. I also didn't like how he called me queen. "Did you say Delgado?" He shuddered as he sat up. My eyes widened when he said that because all traces of his accent disappeared. "Did you say Delgado?" he asked again. "Are you somehow related to Robin Delgado, the photographer?" "I'm his wife," I mumbled. "Oh, damn," he said. His English was perfect, all the pretense of street had disappeared. "You probably shouldn't tell him that," he said. "Oh, damn," he repeated. "Rob is a friend of mine. He's done the covers for every CD I've ever had go platinum. It wouldn't be a good thing to be on the bad side with him. Some of the concepts he's developed for my covers are like art. We need to keep it a real secret." "Why did you even do this?" he asked. Then he slapped his forehead as if a light bulb had suddenly gone on. "It was that tall Russian model, wasn't it? I knew that she didn't love me. These Russian women just don't like black guys," he said. "But Jason," I began cautiously, "you're not black." "Whatever," he said. He took his phone out of his pocket, pressed one button, and 2 large muscular bodyguards opened the door. "Get me out of here," he said. The bodyguards looked at each other in bewilderment. "Ah, guys, get me out of this mess," he said. "We need to hurry home before this gets serious." The officials grabbed him by one hand and dragged him out of the room. They looked at me as if I were some kind of threat to him. When I returned to the main room where the party was still in full swing, I began to look for a way out. Before I reached the middle of the hall, Serena stood in front of me. "How is it?" she asked. I stammered. "Nothing happened," I blurted out. She grinned and nodded. "You just spilled milk on your dress, right?" she asked. "Have you ever?" I started. She looked at me as if I was stupid. "I'm a virgin," she said. "I didn't want my first time to be with that troll. When I do it, It will be with someone worthwhile, someone I love. I'll rush home to tell him my side of the story before you get to him, I said. I tried to walk past her, but she blocked my path. You don't have to rush for me, she said. Maybe you can sleep with a couple more celebrities anyway. I'm not going to tell him. I can't afford to, for several reasons. I just looked at her. My manager is Frenchman Frederic Bonton. He saw the test shots we took today and said I've never looked better in my life. I need Rob to keep taking pictures of me. Even the Frenchman says he's getting the best out of me that other photographers can't. People tend to shoot the messenger, so if I tell Rob what you did, I might lose the photographer. You don't have to worry about me. I can't guarantee the same regarding everyone else. Oh, and I also can't guarantee the photos of you and Jason that were taken when I introduced you. Good luck, you'll need it, she said. I looked around the room as she turned and left. The party continued in full swing and was likely to last until midnight. It was only 10. I left the building and went home. As soon as I got home, for some reason, perhaps out of guilt, I started drinking. It was all that Russian woman's fault. I started the day hating her. She flew into the shoot in the morning as if she were some kind of Russian princess. She ignored all the stylists who were waiting for her and sat down to start talking to Rob. Apparently, she thought I was one of Rob's assistants because she didn't even notice me until she tried to send me out to get coffee. Rob then told her who I was every time she changed outfits. She ignored the stylists and designers and kept asking Rob what he thought about her appearance. Finally, when the shooting ended, she brazenly wrapped herself around my husband while I was sitting next to him. She knew who I was and still clung to him. It was like watching a cat in heat. When I got to the damn party, she introduced me to Jason Hamer. Since she had a history with him, I'm sure she knew what a jerk he was. The feeling of being thrown to the lions was more than justified. I really believe she did it on purpose. Vodka seemed to help me understand Russians better. Serena told me a couple of reasons why she wouldn't give me away, but she only gave me one of them. Vodka cleared everything up. Serena didn't deceive me, but she had the most important reason she couldn't tell Rob. Not because she was afraid of losing the photographer, she didn't want to lose Rob. It was in front of me the whole time. Serena was in love with my damn husband. She didn't want to tell him about me because if he reacted the way she said, he wouldn't want anything to do with her, and she wanted to pick up the pieces after my failure. It was clear that the reason Rob pulled things out of her that no one else could was because, whether he knew it or not, he inspired her. The light in her eyes came from the fact that she loved him. That's why she was constantly flirting and approaching him, to see if he liked the clothes she wore for pictures. As I sat and sipped my drink, I thought about all my mistakes that day. For most of the time Rob and I were together, I heard about how spoiled and childish celebrities could be. He told me time after time that their attitudes were spoiled and they were not like ordinary people. He also said they are not real people, there is always something missing in them. They look more like caricatures than real people. Then, I thought about many things. Rob dated Eva Mendes several times, according to Serena. Serena was sure that Rob would never start anything with her if given the opportunity. The biggest blow for me was that Rob rejected Serena herself. I was shocked that he turned down one of the most beautiful women in the world and instead told her how beautiful he thought I was. He loved me so much, and I just spread my legs and slept with Jason Hamer without thinking about him. Jason Hamer slept with me and called me available, then practically ran out of the room when he found out I was married to Rob. He was more worried about losing Rob as a photographer than about how I was feeling. He didn't even give me a minute of attention. It was as if I was nothing despite all the damn songs he muttered about true love and sacrifice. Jason Hamer was an idiot. Rob was much better in every way than Jason Hamer will ever be. Jessica was right all along. I don't know if I was actually drunk, but I passed out. A frantic emergency call from Ed made a terrible evening even worse. Ed's wife was pregnant, and just before the party he was filming was about to start, she went into labor. He called me and I told him to leave the guys there and that once all the guests arrived at the party I was photographing, I would get in my Mustang and drive over there to get some special shots of all the important guests at the party. He thanked me and ran off to meet his wife and her parents at the hospital. Ed was a good guy. If I worked for someone and Connie went into labor, I would run out of there like crazy. I would let my colleagues on the ground know what was going on, and after that, let whatever happened. If I got fired for trying to be present for the birth of my child, then whoever I worked for didn't deserve me. What bothered me the most, however, was the need to divide attention between the two parties. Although separated by only 3 miles in actual distance, they could not have been further apart in tone or influence. On one hand, you have a bunch of oversized, PR-oriented actors, models, and musicians who are the complete focus of public attention at the moment. On the other hand, you have politicians and driving forces that can influence our lives in reality and will continue to do so for decades to come through the laws and policies they support. One group represents youth, energy, and fun, while the other group represents experience, wealth, and responsibility. When I hopped into my deep purple 2012 Mustang GT, I didn't think about the differences between the two groups, I thought about their similarities. Both groups loved publicity and seeing their photographs in newspapers and magazines. One band did it because publicity meant album sales or filled movie theater seats. Another group did this because publicity would bring them closer to election or re-election. In the end, I think they are the same. As I pulled up to the second hotel, I realized that I had left my photographer's pass for the event at home. I called Polly, who was working with Ed, and asked her to borrow a pass from one of the guys who was already inside. "As long as it doesn't get checked and needs a return, I'll be fine," I said. She met me right at the door, and I laughed as I waved to the security guys. I knew the owner of the security company and could probably have gotten through without a pass. I quickly disappeared around the corner as I saw Serena getting out of her limousine and heading inside. For some reason, Serena had developed feelings for me, but I didn't want to encourage her. She's a really nice girl and genuinely kind, but I'm married. Besides, Serena had already caused me enough trouble today. As soon as I entered, I slipped into the room we had prepared to store our equipment. I greeted all my men and checked how they were doing. I told them that Ed had planned everything thoroughly, as usual, and they should continue what they were doing. However, I had another thought. Most of the photos they were going to take would be posed and prepared, like all the other photos from various sources. I wanted to capture raw moments, photographs of stars and vulnerable moments. Most of them would probably be junk, but maybe a few would be gold. After about 20 minutes of working in the hall, I saw that man who's named Jason Hamer with a short woman in a black dress. Her legs were strong yet slender, there was something familiar about them. At the time, I didn't think much of it, as I had photographed so many different women that they all blurred together over time. I moved around the room to get a better angle and almost dropped the camera when I saw Jason talking to my wife, Connie. I didn't know what she was doing here or how she got here, but I was determined to find out. I started to get up and walk over to them to ask her what the hell she was doing here, but then I changed my mind. I was sure she just wanted to meet Jason, her idol. I held off on imagining her with him because I wanted her to have her little fantasy about him. So often, when we idealize people, it is a great disappointment when it turns out that they are not the people we thought they were. I decided to keep taking pictures of them so that she would at least have some memories of meeting this idiot. He then led her out of the hall and into one of the interview rooms. My heart sank. I ran out of the building and walked around the side. I returned to the building as soon as I realized that the ballroom wasn't level with the ground. I found myself on the second-floor balcony and pointed the telephoto lens at the rooms on this side of the building. Some were empty. Then I found them. I started filming. He got up from the couch they were sitting on and stood between her legs, and she just sat there motionless. If her eyes were closed, I would have thought she had been pilled with illegal substances. I don't know how I did it, but somehow I switched the camera to automatic mode. It kept clicking, taking picture after picture as my heart broke. There was no doubt about what I was watching. I stood on that balcony and watched the end of my marriage. What really pissed me off was all the crap Connie said to me this morning about the hug from Serena. When Serena hugged me, she wrapped her arms around me because I didn't love her back. But now, here was my loving wife allowing this fake, clueless man to have her. I knew that outside the door of the room would be Marco and Will, Jason's huge bodyguards. There was no way to get past these two former footballers. I also didn't want to make a scene at the party. This would be the fastest route to professional suicide. Most promoters and even the stars themselves prefer to avoid drama and scenes unless they need publicity. For someone who is supposed to be invisible, whose job is simply to take pictures, creating a scene would be unacceptable. The best solution was to just leave and figure out a way to get back at both of them without causing a scene. I took a few more pictures, focusing on Connie's face, and then turned to walk away. Returning to the main hall, I went and talked to my team. I told them they were doing a great job and that we would meet at 2 a.m. in the office to review the pictures they had taken. By 4 o'clock in the morning, we would have reviewed every photo taken at both parties and emailed them to the magazine that had commissioned us. We would also sell some other pictures to various newspapers that either didn't have staff on site or didn't have the pictures like we did. I had 4 hours to do what I needed to do. I left the building and got into my Mustang. The roar of the engine calmed me. I drove home, grabbed enough clothes to last a few days, and got back in the car. I drove downtown to the building where I rented office space. I rented the entire 3rd floor. We had offices, several photo studios, a couple of meeting rooms, storage space, and a couple of editing studios. We needed every square foot of that space. I already knew that within a few years, we would need our own building. One of the cool things was that during my carefree single days, I often lived in a small, ready-made room behind my office. There was a very comfortable sofa, a full bathroom with a shower, and even a small kitchen in the space behind my personal office. Until I found a new apartment or condo, this should be enough. Connie and I were only married for 2 years. When we got married, my business lawyer told me that it would be wise to enter into an agreement that would prevent Connie from getting any part of my business in the event of a divorce. It wasn't exactly a prenuptial agreement, but it worked. Also, since we had only been together for 2 years and didn't have children, divorce would probably be straightforward. I saw it more as, okay, that didn't work, you take your stuff, I'll take mine. One of us can take over the rent if we want to live there. It was nice meeting you, bye-bye. The security guard in front of the building waved at me as I parked my Mustang in my spot. My spot was near the front of the building where the owners parked when they were in town. I had a great location because, renting the entire 3rd floor, I was one of their largest tenants. The security guard, Greg, was used to our unusual schedule. We came and went almost around the clock because the media worked around the clock. As I stepped out of the elevator, my night staff looked up. Elsa, my office manager, who looked like she had just woken up, approached me with a cup of hot coffee. "I didn't expect you until 2, she said. "I didn't expect to be here either," I replied. "I'll be in my office for a while. I don't want to be disturbed. I need to edit and print some photos that I never expected to take." She looked at me and realized that I was upset. "Do you need something?" she asked. "Maybe a little more of this coffee every now and then," I said. "Oh yeah, Elsa, what's the biggest high-quality photo paper we have in stock that we can print on?" "I think we have some 18 by 24 glossy card stock left over," she said. "Great, bring me some of that," I said. "How many sheets?" "As many as you can find," I said. "I need at least 10, but 20 would be better. If we don't have that much, then bring me whatever you have and move on to the next largest size." I worked alone in my office. I downloaded the photos of Connie's infidelity onto my computer and then selected the most incriminating ones. I started with a few innocent shots of Connie standing in front of Jason, looking fascinated. Then I worked on a couple of shots where they both entered the room. I used a series of their conversations, and finally, I started working on shots of the act itself. I took one last sip of coffee and sent all the pictures to the main printer. The printer in my office wasn't big enough to print on sheets of that size, so I went to the printer in the main office area and waited while the pictures were printed. I printed them in reverse order so that if we ran out of large paper, the most incriminating pictures would be larger. When all the pictures were printed, I took them and left the building. It took almost 2 hours to process, select, edit, and print the pictures. I told Elsa that I would be back to help look through the pictures of the evening. I returned to the apartment, and I must admit, I was still in shock. Maybe because the shock had not yet passed, but I did not feel overwhelming pain. I was icy calm. I think the prospect of buying a new car would be more stressful than the thought of the end of my marriage. I expected to find Connie in our bedroom and hoped that she would be asleep. 1 out of 2 wasn't too bad. In fact, it was closer to 0 out of 2. Connie was not in her bedroom, and although she was not conscious, she was not actually asleep. Most likely, she was simply passed out from drinking, considering the almost empty bottle of vodka that was still in her hand. This raised a lot of questions for me. Was she drunk when she went into the room with Jason, or was she drinking to ease her guilt? I didn't think it mattered to me anymore. I left her where she was and went to the bedroom to begin my plan. I got out a roll of duct tape and started putting squares of duct tape on the walls of our bedroom and along the hallway to the bathroom. Once all the pieces of tape were stuck down, I took out a jar of pins and added a pin to each piece of tape. After that, I went back and threaded pieces of fishing line through the pins. It looked like a very sparse but complex network of transparent plastic lines. It was almost like a spider's web all over the apartment. I went back into the living room and picked up Connie. I carried her into our bedroom, covering her with a blanket. I then took all the photos I had printed and attached each one to the fishing line in a specific order. Right above the bed was a photo of her meeting her idol, Jason Hamer. The photo was hung at eye level, so it was the first thing she saw when she woke up. She could walk around the house and go to the bathroom, where she would find the last photograph. In the last photo, I used a thick white marker to write her a message. It was very clear and consisted of just one word, so she would understand it even in her hungover state. The next morning, I turned off the light as I walked back through the apartment, looking for anything else I could take with me. In the morning, I will call my lawyer and begin the divorce process. Connie. I was completely stunned when I woke up the next afternoon. The sun should have been shining on me through my window, but it wasn't. When I opened my eyes, I noticed the sunlight was shining on the bed next to me, but somehow it wasn't shining directly on me. I also noticed that I was in bed. I should have been in bed. The last thing I remember is that I was sitting on the floor in front of the sofa and drinking. How did I end up in bed? Rob must have put me to bed when he got home this morning. Then I noticed Rob wasn't there. It didn't make sense. Rob's routine, like most others, had certain patterns. Typically, after working the night's event, he would usually spend most of the night editing and selling shots, and then we would both sleep during the day. Not only was Rob not in bed with me, but his side of the bed looked like no one had slept on it. The poor guy probably came home, saw me on the floor, put me to bed, and then went back to work. I smiled, even though my head was foggy and pounding. That man Jason would never do something like that. I don't know what attracted me to Jason Hamer. He doesn't sound anything like his music or his videos. Looks like Rob was right, he's just not a real person. When I fully opened my eyes to get out of bed, I stared straight at the photograph hanging above the bed. Even as I considered the contents of the photo, I wondered how it got there and who hung it. The photo clearly showed me in my now ruined black dress, standing in front of Jason the previous evening. I had never seen myself in this dress before. If I had known that it was so tight and made me look so cheap, I would never have worn it. I tore off the photograph and then saw another photograph behind it, a little further away. In this one, Jason was holding my shoulder and moving to the side. When I stood up, I realized that I still couldn't stand, and that my hangover was much worse than I thought. I nearly hit my head on the wall when I stumbled. I looked up, and there was another photo after the second one, and another one after that. I struggled to my feet and walked around the room, looking at each photograph and finding that each one was worse than the last. As I walked through a series of photographs along the hallway, I noticed that the perspective and angle had changed. Since the photographer could not shoot through a closed door, either the second photographer or the same one continued to photograph us from outside the room. In the middle of the hallway, I saw a few pictures of Jason and me sitting on this beautiful couch in the interview room. My heart sank, and I realized what I was looking at. The only question in my mind was how far the photos went and how angry Rob was with me. By this point, it was obvious to me that Rob himself had taken the photos, even though he wasn't supposed to be at the party. When I went through the photos in the bathroom, I realized how well he knew me. Looking at the pictures of Jason doing to me what no married woman should ever allow any man other than her husband to do, I felt sick. The next photo was near the toilet and showed Jason spreading my legs. As soon as I threw up in the toilet, I saw the last photo. It was placed at eye level. Rob, using one of those white markers he used to highlight details in photos, wrote goodbye. The shock of this message made me vomit again. What the hell did he mean by goodbye? I splashed my face with water. My head was still pounding, so I swallowed a couple of aspirins and brushed my teeth obsessively to get rid of the taste of both alcohol and vomit. I called Rob's cell phone. He didn't answer after the 10th call. I received a message that the number had been changed and no more information about this number was available. Then I realized that Rob was taking the situation seriously. He didn't give out his personal number to very many people. Several times, when I looked at his contact list, I laughed because I had 3 times as many people in my contact list as Rob. Rob had hundreds of clients, but most of them only had his office number. There were less than 10 people on his personal phone list. He preferred that clients and people he worked with contact him through his office. They called the office and were then connected to his personal phone. The list included our home number, Rob's mom, his dad, his sister, the office, and a couple of Rob's best friends. Rob probably called the phone company, changed the number, and then informed several contacts of his new number. It probably only took him a few minutes to do it. I called the office and spoke with the secretary. I asked for Rob and was asked the purpose of the call. Any of Rob's office managers would have recognized my voice, so I was lucky. I told the woman that the call was personal. She asked for my name and number and said someone would call me back. Before she hung up, I asked to speak to Elsa. I was told that Elsa was working last night, but I could talk to Susan. Sue was always warm towards me, so I told the woman it would be okay, and I was transferred. When Susan got in touch, I told her who I was. There was a long pause before she asked what she could do for me. I told her I wanted to talk to Rob and that I'd be downstairs soon. "Listen, Connie," she said. "I know there's something going on between you and Rob right now. I'm married too, and I know every relationship has problems from time to time. I don't know what's going on between you, and I'm not taking sides, except mine. I'm paid to do what Rob wants. I was told not to connect you with him under any circumstances. He doesn't want to talk to you. He went so far as to order security not to let you onto the 3rd floor of the building. They posted 2 of our guards at the elevator. You won't be allowed to leave the elevator on the 3rd floor. He can't ban you from the entire building yet because he doesn't own it, but he's on very good terms with the owners. Even if you could get into the building, Rob isn't here right now. They were all working late on pictures from last night's parties. He took a nap for a couple of hours and left right when I arrived this morning. I know he had a meeting about the shots he took yesterday for Serena and other models. I think he had other meetings. Don't be upset, but I think one of them was with Jeff. Take care, Connie, and I hope everything will be all right." Then I realized that this was very serious. Jeff Goldblum was Rob's lawyer. He came up with a prenuptial agreement, which I signed. This was not a prenuptial agreement in the legal sense of the word. It didn't outline what each of us would get in the event of a divorce, but it did make it clear that Rob owned and founded his own business long before we met, and that in the event of a divorce, I could not claim any part of Rob's business. I could still claim a portion of Rob's salary or his personal assets, but the business was out of reach. Jeff was a business lawyer, not a divorce lawyer, so Rob meeting him could mean anything. I felt like I was about to cry, so I called Jessica. She was at my door in less than 10 minutes. As soon as I opened the door, she started asking me stupid questions about that idiot Jason Hamer. "Have you met him? How is he really? Did you get his autograph? Do you have photos?" She asked, all in one breath without pausing. "Oh damn, you look terrible," she said. "So, what went wrong? If you're not happy, then you obviously didn't meet him. What happened? Can you stop for a minute so I can say something?" I answered sharply. She just nodded her head. "I actually went to the party," I said. "And Serena Vasova was there. She introduced me." "Wait!" Jessica exclaimed in shock. "Have you spent time with Serena Vasova? Are you, like, friends or something?" "No," I said. "But she's not as terrible as I thought. Anyway, she introduced me to Jason." "And you're kidding me!" Jessica exclaimed. No, I interrupted her. "He's not at all what he looks like on TV or in the videos. First of all, he's only about 5 feet tall. He's a troll. His accent is fake. Everything about him is fake. And he's got a small one in his pants. Wow, she said. You didn't do what I think you did? I nodded and started crying. That's why I'm upset. You feel guilty, don't you? Connie, as your best friend, please listen to me. I know you, like the rest of us, have heard that honesty is the best policy. Forget about this crap. This is complete. If Rob ever comes up and asks you about this, deny everything. I grabbed her shoulder and led her towards the corridor. What the hell does this all mean? She asked. When she started looking at the photos, her jaw dropped. You need to make sure Rob never sees these photos, she said. She walked up and down the hallway, taking photographs. When she got to the bathroom and saw the worst of them, she looked at me. You weren't kidding, she said. You actually slept with Jason Hamer. How was that? It was like not having an intimate, I said. He called me approachable when he found out I was Rob's wife. He was more worried about Rob stopping taking pictures of him then, and how it made me feel. He's not a straight guy, and his accent is fake. He's a complete creep. Then you really need to make sure Rob doesn't find out, she said. Jessica, I said quietly. Yes, she smiled. Rob took those damn photos. I screamed. What do you think he meant by that last one, when he wrote goodbye? Since I woke up this morning, I couldn't contact him. He has changed his mobile number, and people in his office are working for him. They wouldn't let me talk to him even if he were there. What about your agreement? She asked. What are you babbling about, Jess? I asked. You said you and Rob had an agreement. He could sleep with Ava Mendez, and you could sleep with Jason Hamer. Rob is a man of his word. You just need to remind him of that. How can I remind him of something when he won't talk to me? I asked. Then find someone he talks to and have them remind him, she said. It was actually not a completely stupid idea. I didn't have any better ones. Anyway, I needed to find the right person to do this. Jessica and I spent the rest of the day trying to figure out what to do. I was glad she was with me because I felt terrible, and having someone to share my pain cut it in half. But Rob didn't waste any time either. The next morning, I received a call from a lawyer asking if I could meet with him about my divorce. He asked for my lawyer's number because he didn't want to meet with me without a lawyer present. He said that as long as I find a lawyer, he can send me copies of documents for review. Because it was a simple divorce, he thought that if I had a lawyer, the whole process could be completed and filed in court in a week, and in 6 months, 3 months with the right judge, the whole thing could be over. He was waiting for my answer. Where's your office? I asked. He gave me the address and said he would be available all day. I got dressed and went to his office. I dressed modestly for the meeting. I just wore jeans and a blouse with the leather jacket that Rob loved so much. I was shown into his office, and he stood up to shake my hand. He looked around as if he was expecting someone else. When he extended his hand to shake, I pulled my hand back and, as soon as I was within reach, I hit him as hard as I could. This is an attack, he complained. No, it wasn't an attack, I said. It was therapy. If you look in any medical journal, they will tell you that the way to treat people who are in shock or behaving irrationally is to give them a hard stinging slap to the face. It helps reorder their brains so they start processing information again. He looked at me like I was crazy, still holding his face where I hit him. But I'm not crazy, I said carefully. If you think I'm just going to leave and give Rob a divorce, you're wrong, I blurted out. Rob is mine. I love him. My marriage is not over just because I made a terrible mistake. Besides, Rob has no grounds for divorce. We have an agreement. What agreement? He asked. Have Rob call me, and we can talk about it, I said. Well, since you're here, he said, can we at least discuss a settlement? There will be no settlement, I said. So, there's no point in discussing it, then, he replied. I don't have to ask Rob to call you. He gave me his legal credentials and told me to handle the divorce. He's focusing on his career right now. In fact, he's about to go on a business trip. One of his clients landed a big order, which is a major opportunity for Rob. It will take weeks to prepare, so he may be away for quite some time. Also, he needs to find a new place to live, depending on what you decide to do with the apartment you're currently renting. Jeff thinks it's time for Rob, whether you two stay together or not, to buy a house. So, leaving the apartment may be a good decision for him. Perhaps he can be persuaded to pay the remaining rent for you in exchange for a quick resolution of the issue. No deal, I said. Once Rob and I sit down and talk things through, you'll be out of the game. There are some things you might want, he started, but I walked out while he was talking. Afterwards, perhaps I should have listened to him. On the way home, I stopped at the grocery store to buy a few things for dinner and was surprised to find that all my credit cards had been declined. I went out to the car and called the bank from my mobile phone. It turned out that Rob had paid off all my credit cards and canceled them. Although the cards were in my name, they were linked to his accounts and essentially his credit cards. I went to the bank and decided to write a check from the account, using the cash for my purchases while Rob recovered. That's when I came to my senses. All our accounts were actually Rob's accounts, and he had removed my name from all of them. I only had about $100 in cash, which wouldn't last long. When I got home, I flipped through the phone book and found a lawyer. The first lawyer I called took my case on contingency terms. If I stay married, Rob will have to pay for his services. If I get divorced, I will pay his fee from my settlement, I explained. We called Rob's lawyer again and made an appointment. Rob's lawyer was insufferable. In a matter of hours, he went from "I'll be here all day" to the earliest he could meet being next week. He also arranged for a copy of the divorce papers to be sent to my lawyer. My lawyer looked at me and started shaking his head. "If this goes on too long, you'll have to get a job to pay me," he said. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "You haven't been together long, and you don't have children," he said. "Most judges won't give you much anyway. Your husband is filing for divorce on grounds of infidelity and claims he has photographic evidence. At the same time, it appears he has an agreement signed by you that prevents you from receiving anything from his business. He seems to reinvest most of the business income back into the business and pays himself a small salary. You are unlikely to get anything out of it. In fact, when he paid off your credit cards this morning, the amount he paid out was more than you could have expected to receive in settlement. You seem to spend a lot on clothes, don't you? What are you trying to say?" I asked. "If the divorce goes this way, you'll probably have to pay your husband," he said. "And you're broke. You need to look for a job right away or at least accept this settlement that'll give you $25,000 in cash and allow you to stay in the apartment until the end of the lease." "And how much do your terms cost?" I asked. "At $200 an hour, you already owe me about $11,000, he grinned. "That will leave you with $24,000 if you sign it now. I'm in no hurry. We can fight to the end. Am I in a good position?" I asked. "Does he have photographs?" he asked. I nodded, and a tear rolled down my cheek. "If you really left for someone else, why are you trying to keep this one?" he asked. "Why don't you let him go and find someone else?" "Because this one is the one I love," I said. "The other guy is just a creep, and he's famous." He shrugged and smiled a crooked smile. "If I sign the papers, can I still try to talk to my husband and convince him to reconsider or try to reconcile?" I asked. "Of course," he said. "You can try to win him back for as long as you live. Stranger things have happened." Ed, I signed the papers. Over the next few weeks, my life became hell. I found out that the judge had finalized our divorce, which would be effective in 6 months. Rob never returned to the condo. Instead, he sent one of his assistants to collect the rest of his belongings. She only took Rob's clothes and personal items. When I asked her about the rest of his belongings, thinking I might argue over some of them and force Rob to pick them up in person, she just shrugged and said he would buy new things. Then it got even worse. I started seeing news reports and pictures of Rob and Serena on TV. Serena had been chosen for both the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue and the Victoria's Secret catalog, and on both occasions, Rob had taken the photographs. They were also seen together too many times for it to be a coincidence. I had always known she wanted my husband and would eventually get him. At the same time, Rob's business was thriving. He had to decline an opportunity to shoot the cover for Jason Hamer's new CD because of his packed schedule. Jason threw a fit and insisted on working only with Rob. Everyone wondered why Rob turned down the job when he could have easily sent one of his employees to set everything up and then jumped in to shoot. But I knew. Jason knew, too, though neither of us talked about it. A couple of weeks later, I discovered I was pregnant. I demanded to see Rob. I asked my lawyer to contact the judge and halt the divorce until the baby was born. The meeting didn't go as I expected. Instead of just Rob and his lawyer, there were 5 of us. I had imagined kicking the lawyers out and having a heart-to-heart with Rob about how sorry I was and how I never stopped loving him. We could have talked about reconciling for the sake of our child. But that's not how it went at all. My lawyer began by stating that Rob would have to pay me child support beyond what had been agreed upon, and that this support should be based on what he could actually afford, not just his salary. Then Rob asked how we would know if the baby was his. Serena quietly interjected that if the baby was Rob's, they wanted it. This shocked me because it left no doubt they were together, and in her mind, my child wouldn't change that. My lawyer reminded them that in our state, all children born during a marriage are legally presumed to be the husband's, regardless of biological parentage. Rob countered that a DNA test after the baby's birth could prove otherwise, allowing the divorce to proceed as planned. I would then have to seek child support from the biological father, and Rob would be off the hook. My lawyer objected, mentioning new DNA tests that could be done harmlessly before birth. If we could prove the baby was Rob's prenatally, he would also have to support me during the pregnancy. I contacted my obstetrician and arranged for the test, but we would have to wait at least another month for the results. I contacted Rob's lawyer, and we all waited anxiously. During this time, my lawyer insisted we also contact any other possible fathers. I had no idea how to reach Jason, but Serena surprisingly helped by providing his management company's number. They were less than welcoming when I called. Serena also gave me Jason's personal number, which I used immediately. "Hello, who is this?" Jason asked. "Jason, this is Connie," I said. "Do you remember me?" He had no idea who I was. I explained, and he became upset, blaming me for his issues with Rob and the poor reception of his new CD's cover. "I'm pregnant," I told him. He was actually pleased. "Well, if you and Rob get back together, maybe he can use my damn cover," he said. "Jason, I'm calling because the baby might not be Rob's," I said. "I really hope that's true, but damn, girl, you should have used a protection," he replied. "Jason, you don't understand," I said. "Maybe you." All I heard was a beep. I tried to call the number back at least 10 times that day. By the 8th call, I was told the number had been changed. I went back to calling his management and never got a call back. The next few weeks were unremarkable. I spent a lot of the money I got from Rob on preparing the condo for the baby. The day of the test finally arrived, and surprisingly, Rob came to my doctor's office to be with me. We had a chance to talk while I was waiting for the doctor. I was nervous as hell. Rob came over and took my hand. "I always wanted us to have children," he said. "Rob, it wasn't supposed to work out this way," I said. "We were still supposed to be married. We just have to make the best of what we have." "Rob, it was a mistake." "Jason Hamer is a creep," I said. "I know," he said. "That's why I never introduced you to him." I was also a little jealous. "Why did you have to be jealous?" I asked. "I loved you so much," he said. "And Jason was kind of a fantasy for you. Remember that stupid deal we made?" "Yes, you broke it," I said, tears rolling down my cheeks. "Connie, it was never serious," he said. "When we got married, we made a vow to never cheat on each other, whether it was with Jason or even Eva Mendes." "Have you ever been with Eva Mendes?" I asked. "No," he smiled. "Why?" "I had you at home." Hearing him say that he would choose me over his ultimate fantasy made me feel terrible. Then the doctor came in. When I came out about an hour later, he waited for me while the doctor wrote me a prescription for the minor pain I would experience for the next few days. Connie, if it turns out that this is our child, we need to talk and decide something, he said. I want to be a very involved dad. If Jason turns out to be the lucky one, then I hope you have a happy life. My heart broke at that moment because I knew that if the baby was Jason's, I would never see my husband again. I also knew that Jason would never be a good father, and I would have to go through hell to get him to pay child support. The doctor said the results would come back in 3 days. The first of these 3 days I was on pins and needles. I had all sorts of daydreams and nightmares. I dreamed that the baby was Rob's and we got back together and lived happily ever after. I also dreamed that Rob's baby and Serena paid a hit squad $1 million to kill me. I woke up in a cold sweat after dreaming that a Russian guy was just about to stick an axe blade between my eyes. On the morning of the 3rd day, I woke up to the phone ringing. It was Jessica. I just called to give you an update, she said. Jess, I'll call you back, I said. I need to call the doctor and get the results. But Connie, you should hear this, she said enthusiastically. Sometimes Jessica really got on my nerves. I wondered what she might consider as important as getting my baby's DNA test results. After endless waiting, I finally got through to the doctor. We did the test several times, she said, and there is no doubt about it. I hope you can rejoice. My heart jumped, and I started smiling. I knew Rob wouldn't let Serena even scratch the mother of her child, let alone kill her. And I was sure that, as he said, Rob wanted to be an involved father. That in itself meant that I might push Serena out of the picture. The man who came to the office with you, the doctor continued, under no circumstances can he be the father of the child. I dropped the phone and started crying. It shouldn't have been this way. Finally, after crying for about half an hour, I stood up and realized that I just needed to contact my lawyer. Jason was rich. I may not have loved him, but he was legally obligated to take care of me and his child. I hung up and started thinking about how I could convey this to him. Almost immediately, the phone rang again. I picked up the phone. What the hell is wrong with you? Said Jessica. Have you seen it yet? I asked. Saw what? She asked. Turn on the TV, I said. I walked over to the TV and turned it on. On the screen was a huge photograph of Jason Hamer. Oh, damn, I thought. Probably his new CD is coming out today. From the world of entertainment comes the shocking news, the announcer said. Pop star rapper Jason Hamer, a Canadian with a surprisingly urban style, was gunned down last night. Hamer was in the projects area on Detroit's east side, filming one of his stylized gangster rap videos when he walked off the set during a break. He decided to talk to several locals who reacted poorly to his style of dress and manner of speaking. Hamer's bodyguards were severely beaten. I was shocked. I switched to another channel. The world mourns the loss of Jason Hamer, the announcer said. Finally, on another channel, I got a different perspective on the situation. The suspect, who faces life in prison, was interviewed while being escorted by police, the announcer said. The scene showed a black guy with long dreadlocks being escorted by police in handcuffs. The reporter put the microphone up to his face and started asking questions. Remorse? Hell no, I don't feel any remorse. How the hell was I supposed to know who he was? He came here with 2 big guards, walking around like he was Queen Elizabeth. But he was from here, said the reporter. He was from this area. All his songs said he was from here. Oh, damn, lady, you must be crazy. He wasn't from here. He was just some crazy white guy messing with us, so I finished him off, the suspect replied. It was Jason Hamer, the reporter said, in tears. The announcer returned. Hamer left surprisingly little money to his family. It appears that Hamer spent most of his money on low-rise pants and hockey jerseys. He had no money at all. In fact, Hamer was deeply in debt. The sheriff will be holding an auction of Hamer's belongings to pay for his funeral. I then realized that I was absolutely in despair. I wiped down tables in the restaurant where I worked. It was hard to wipe down the damn table because the towel I had was bone dry. It was rush hour, and I needed a table for a couple of guys who had just walked in. I was dead tired from standing all day, and being able to earn some overtime would really help my budget. Most of the money I made went towards daycare for the child and food for both of us. I moved to a smaller place that I could afford and tried to rebuild my life. I didn't watch or follow any entertainment news because I was still trying to get over Rob and our divorce. A year passed, and I hadn't heard anything from him. I think somewhere deep down, I hoped that he would get tired of Serena, or vice versa, and he would come looking for me. Someone turned on the TV, and I looked up when I heard the guys in the diner all sigh. "Damn, this woman is beautiful," one of the guys shouted from behind me. I didn't have the heart to tell them that my husband had once abandoned me for her. Maybe it was vanity, but the realization that Rob loved me and just settled down with her made me feel happy. I listened to what the announcer was saying. Victoria's Secret model and Sports Illustrated covergirl Serena Vasova announced her retirement today. The 24-year-old model is pregnant and set to marry her fiancé, celebrity photographer Robin Delgado. Vasova told reporters that she won't miss her old life. What she ever wanted was to be a wife and mother. Delgado replied that Serena was the woman of his dreams and that they would grow old together, and their children would be fat and happy. I went back to wiping the table, and suddenly dampening the rag was no longer a problem. The tears falling from my eyes did a great job of that. What do you think of our story today? In my opinion, the wife did the most unpleasant thing from her husband's side, but he is not a bad guy either. He was not confused and recorded everything for compromise for her in court and for the lawyer. What's your opinion? Write in the comments. Until new videos.